Hello, all. Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Tonight, we are coming to you with another special episode. We have with us today Krystel McNeil. Krystel plays social worker Kiara. Is it Alfaro?
Alfaro, yeah.
Alfaro. I'm not bad. On the Pitt. So, Krystel, we just want to welcome you and thank you so much for being with us and taking time out of your day to talk with us. We are super excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Kiara is one of my favorite characters, and
Same.
you didn't get nearly enough screen time, but
Oh,
we loved her. And that leads to, I'll jump right into the first question. So we love your character, and we're really grateful that the writers chose to have a social worker represented on the show. Personally, not ever having been in the medical field, it was just not something that's ever occurred to me how important it is. Although once I started really clocking in on your character, I realized I actually know a couple of people who worked in that industry.
yeah.
In that type of position in a hospital. I just never really thought about how much they do. Anyway, can you tell us about how you heard about the role and what was the audition process like?
Well, I was initially called in for another character, and then once I didn't book that one, they sent me the role for Kiara, and it was really funny too because what I was initially called in for, I didn't like necessarily resonate. I mean, I resonated with the character, but I was like, something's like just not.
Just didn't feel like it was for you.
Yeah, didn't feel like it was necessarily for me. But as soon as I got Kiara, like I just saw she was a social worker. And I was like, oh, she's my age. And because a lot of times when you're auditioning, they'll give you somebody who's like 30 years older than you. And it's like, what?
That's crazy because looking at you, if you could see her on the Zoom call, she looks 20 years old. So the idea that they would have you playing older is insane to me.
Yeah, and it was so when I got Kiara, I was like, okay, this makes sense. And one of the in her character description, it said soft spoken but strong. And I think I don't know, for a split second, I was like soft spoken but strong. And I was like, oh, I know her. I was like, that's me. That's exactly how I tend to be. And so then I remember going over my sides and everything and thinking like this was one of the hardest auditions I ever had to do because I didn't necessarily feel like I was doing anything. So I just felt like I was doing something wrong. And it was really funny too, because I was like, I'm just going to go and, put this on tape. And I was going to go to a friend's house to have them put me on to be my reader. And I was like on the way out the door and I looked, for some reason, I was like catching an Uber because I don't know how to drive.
Me either, but it doesn't stop me.
Right. And so I was about to get into the Uber and I looked down at my phone. There was a voice that was like, just check your email. And it was like the audition was due like right that moment. So in my head, I thought it was due like at 5 o'clock in the evening, but it was due like as I was leaving out the door. And so I told the Uber driver, I was like, I am so sorry. I can't take you. You got to go. And then I ran up and just called somebody to like read against me. And then I was like, I wasn't thinking too much because I was like, I got to get this in pat before the deadline. And yeah, I don't know. I just put that in. And then a few days later, I think my agent, I think my agent, let me know that I booked it. Yeah.
Yay. You should have had the Uber driver come and read
Yeah.
with you.
Could you come upstairs for a moment?
Yeah, I drove Uber for a while. Everybody has something else that they're doing. Who knows? They could have been an actor.
Yeah.
But now I have a further question. Who was the role? Can you tell us the role that you were auditionally trying out for?
I think so. It was Dana originally.
Really?
Oh, wow. I could see that. I was thinking, until you said older, I was thinking Dr. Collins.
Oh, yeah, no.
I tell you, one of the things you're talking about your character and having quiet strength. That's crazy because that's actually pretty much how I would describe Kiara. Like there's a thing that you do with your face that is just this perfect compassion. It just feels like in every interaction that you're having with the patient, it's seamless. I mean, it just doesn't feel like acting because you can tell that you're trying to be completely open and empathetic to these people, and you're being so careful about what you say. It
Yeah.
just feels like I'm looking at a real social worker. You embody the character really well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You knocked it out of the park. You really did.
I agree. And we did get, before we move on to the second question, we put it on our social media pages when we're going to be interviewing a cast member. And we had one of our loyal listeners, Maureen, reach out, and she wanted to know, how is it with Gloria there that you still have a job, because she's trying to cut the budget.
I don't know. My aunt, she's a nurse. She's like a nurse practitioner. And she was like, where are the other social workers? And that might be where they went. Gloria might have cut some other social workers. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that would be high on her list of priorities in the hospital if nurses don't even make the cut.
Yeah.
You mentioned your aunt was a nurse. Do you have any kind of a background in healthcare at all? I asked that question because surprisingly, every other person that we've interviewed has some kind of connection to healthcare, whether it was like they studied for it, or like Justin Wade, he is actually trying to become a PT assistant while continuing to do this. And Alex Metz, she was going to go to medical school.
What?
Every single person. I'm no joke. It's crazy. So I was just curious. Did you have any kind of?
Well, my aunt, my grandmother was a nurse for like decades and decades and decades. And my aunts ended up going into nursing as well. So I do have a lot of nurses in my family.
Yeah.
My experience in the medical, I'm nobody's nurse. But I just, as a patient, I've been in the hospital, and then with my children. It's funny because I think I felt like I've spent enough time in the hospital as a patient and with my children where I'm so familiar with that setting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until like years later where I realized that it wasn't normal to be that familiar with the hospital setting, because I would be like talking to people. I was like, you go to the hospital, and they're like, what do you
like, no, we don't hang out in the hospital that much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even just you, I still see like this amazing coincidence, the fact that you have so many nurses in your family. There are zero medical professionals in my family. So I just find it really interesting that all of you, at least in some way, shape, or form, have a kind of a heightened experience with hospitals or medical care or medical staff. And that never came up in the audition process.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
It's almost like fate.
Yeah, it really didn't come up. And the funny thing was, there was so much with Kiara being a social worker that there were certain things that I would read, or when I would make certain connections in the script, or I would feel connected to things. I was like, it was because of my relationship with social workers. And I just have such a Millette, who works on the show. She's like a nurse on the show, and she was a part of the training when they were doing the boot camp. She and I were talking, and I was just telling her, I have this deep love for nurses and social workers, and I don't know what to do with it. And this show gave me an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's somewhere.
Well, then that's actually a better question, considering what your role is. Do you have any insight with social workers that you want to talk about? Do you have any kind of history there or relationship with social workers?
Yeah, I mean, the social workers who I've worked with, or who have worked with me, when my children were in the hospital, especially when I first went to the hospital, it was so funny because I was not sure what social workers did. I was probably 24 when I gave birth. I remember a social worker coming in, and my only connection to social workers, or thought process with social workers, is that they are there to take your kids. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I was thinking, even at 24, in my head, I thought I was a teen mom, because I was like, I'm not grown yet.
I was 28 when I had my first, and I was a teen mom too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And so when I remember they were like, oh, the social worker's coming in to talk to you. And I was like, what did I do? I didn't even give birth. They were taking my kids already.
Right.
I just did not want to talk to the social worker. But she came in, and she was just the sweetest person ever. And I'm worried about my job, because I went into preterm labor, and I was thinking, I don't have time to go into labor right now because I'm still in that probationary period at work.
Mm-hmm.
The social worker just came in and she was like, don't worry about any of that. Like, I'll worry about that. And you just worry about getting these
Oh man.
That's
things.
great.
And she saved my job. I don't remember everything, but I do remember like she, I didn't know what FMLA was. And, she came in and she was like, this is, what you can do. She was like, I'll talk to your boss. And it was so funny because I had the meanest boss in the world. And and somehow she spoke to her
Wow.
and my boss turned sweet that day.
Oh, wow.
I imagine that lady politely but firmly let her know that there are laws that prohibit you from firing somebody because they have a baby in the time frame that they could not help.
Right. Yeah. And I was like, she really took care of so many things that I was worried about in my outside life that had like nothing to do with like the physical condition that I was in, but it allowed me to put my energy and focus where it needed to be at that time.
Which is so important.
Yeah.
You're right. A lot, it's kind of like you think of social work, you do think, okay, well, there's a problem. So here they are doing whatever they're supposed to do. So it's very interesting to hear your story, but how dealing with a good social worker who really did care and have your best interest at heart. I'm great that shaped your mindset on that.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I also had like another social worker who, because I didn't realize that that they counsel you and they can provide therapy and diagnosis. And I probably like a year later, I was working with another social worker who I remember at the time I was thinking like, I don't need therapy well, no, I knew I needed therapy. It's actually a very long story, but it was, I was like, I need therapy coming out of this, like with my birth story and everything and delivering my children. And I remember thinking I needed it, but then I went to a doctor who who was really kind of just told me like, you know what? She found out we went to the same church and she was like, pray about it. And so she would not give me a referral for a therapist. And I was
wow.
like, okay, maybe she's right. And so then I was sitting with my daughter in one of her speech therapy sessions, and the therapist came to the social worker came down, and I'm thinking she's there for my daughter. So I'm really like focused everything that I'm saying on her towards my daughter. But then she started asking these questions about me, and then I started opening up and telling her everything about, giving birth and what I was dealing with at home with my daughter. And it was like after a couple of times coming in, it was like we would come twice a week. And I think maybe like the second week, I was like, I think this woman is providing me with therapy. And that it turns out that's exactly what it was. And I would work with her for like 3 months. Every time my daughter would go in for her speech therapy session, I would sit and talk with her. And she was the only person that I was able to talk to.
Oh man, that makes me want to cry.
And and she ended up leaving the hospital. Before she left, she was like, I'm going to leave, but she was like, I've been providing you with therapy basically. And she was like, and I don't want to leave you because I don't want you to be like left without anything. And she found a friend. She didn't find a friend. She had a friend who was also a therapist who she had worked with. It was really a colleague. And she had set me up with her pro bono because she knew I had the insurance of an actor, which was terrible.
Right.
Insurance of a non-equity, non-union actor at that time. And so she set me up with this therapist pro bono. And like, that was like 14 years ago. And she's still my therapist today.
I love that.
Becky and I,
big mental health advocates.
Yeah, we love us some positive self-care and therapy. We're firm believers in it. Medication, if you need it. We talk a lot about that. So, man, that woman is a superhero.
Yeah.
I want to find her and give her a hug.
That's great.
Yeah.
Not the exact same situation, but like when I was in postpartum and I'd had depression and anxiety my whole life, but I thought I had cured it with positive thinking when I was in my 20s because I was in the most stable part of my life. And then I had a situation where I moved to Charlotte. So I moved 600 miles away from everybody I know with a husband that was traveling and a newborn. And I like very quickly found myself in a bad place. And I ended up thinking that I was crazy. And I thought medication was just for crazy people. So I had a doctor that was that was at the psychiatric emergency room there, who, thank God, was kind of a similar situation. I think she saw something in me that was similar to things that she had experienced, and she took me aside and was like, "You are not crazy." Shot me through all the signs. I mean, I had a doctor like a week or so before that tell me, "This is just who you are now." And if I had believed that, I don't know that I would have made it.
Yeah.
I feel like how life-changing that was for you. And those are the angels on earth. People like that who see something, and it's not even necessarily in their job description, but they have a heart for service, and they see that. That's what keeps this world worth it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you had that experience.
So next question. So episodes 12, 13, and 14 show the staff in the throes of dealing with that horrible mass casualty. And one of our favorite things about the show is how it shows things from all sides, including dealing with the victims' families. And both Kiara and Lupe, who was played by Tracy Villar, had very important roles in these episodes, navigating the chaos and the emotional toll that took on the patients and their families. Tremendous acting by both of you. You know, there was a lot that happened in that episode, but when Mandy and I did our podcast about it, y'all were very huge points because of the service that you provided for those families, but the amazing way you both acted in those. So just curious, what was it like to be involved in such an important storyline?
I think when that storyline came about, and I saw the script for it, I actually did not know that identifying bodies would have fell into the realm of things that social workers, hospital social workers, were
Me either.
tasked with. And I thought it was like, I was like, oh, maybe it's because they're so short staffed that this is what they have to, or like because this moment is so chaotic. But that is something that social workers have to do, mass shooting or not. And as well as registration, people who work at the registration clerks, like Tracy's character. And
so that's accurate. Wow.
Yep. And so because I was like, I was trying to figure out, I was like, how shocking is this? Or like, how jarring is this for Kiara? But then I was like, I realized it was still probably incredibly jarring, because that's not something you do every day, or something that she had been doing every day. And it could have very well have been her first time doing it. And it was so crazy too, because walking in the room, the way that the set is built, it feels very immersive. So when we came in there and we started shooting with those bodies, like I didn't have to act being freaked out by what I was looking at. It was
overwhelming.
Yeah, it really was. And the silence that was there, it was so quiet.
Oh.
And it was, I think the part where we were identifying the body, it was just silent and it was quiet. And I really loved those moments with Tracy, because I was like, it just felt like, all right, somebody else is here, with Kiara in this moment, and we're doing this thing that we, that's hard for us, but we also know that we're walking towards telling somebody the worst news of their life. And there's like the feeling of like being able to identify something, even as a kid, when you get something and it matches, it's like, oh man, this is great. And then it's like,
I don't want to sound like I'm just gassing you up too much, but I'm not. Becky and I were so impressed with how realistic both of your reactions were in that moment. You made us be in that moment with you and really think through like what you said. I could see that in the choices that you were making, that yes, Kiara, we've already seen her have to deal with several thorny, difficult issues throughout the series, but you could see in your face, like this was different. And that this was hard. And it was almost like you could see Kiara pulling up her big girl pants and just saying, I got to do this. And just the quiet bravery of that, and the respect that you were showing to the patient.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really, I'm gonna cry. I don't know why this is making me emotional, but thinking about when you had to tell her, and you both at the same time, like you guys theoretically in this show, you've been professionals doing hard things every single day. But when you both semi-awkwardly said, we're sorry at the same time, that felt like such a choice, because it was so real. And that's what Becky and I were really struck about, is that like, that was such a genuine choice that you made, because what do you say? No one, it doesn't matter how long you've been a social worker, that's just not every day.
No.
And it's so realistic to the helplessness that even somebody like that would feel in that moment of what else can you say?
Yeah. That scene was just so extremely hard. And I forget the actress's name who played the wife in that moment, but she was so incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it always helps when this show is so great because everybody's so good, you can lose yourself in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember shooting that moment was so very hard. And they cut, they had to cut like part of it out, but there was, because she's like crying, and it was the wife, she's like crying, and then Kiara is like trying to do the spiel where she's letting her know, we have these services that are available to you, but she's trying to say it over her crying. And it's like this, and I just remember being like, this is crazy. This is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
feeling like that. And then, but then thinking like, but it's like, it's crazy, it's ridiculous, but you have to say, you have to like let them know. But I think it was like at that point where Kiara really couldn't just be a social worker in that moment. And I think and in that scene, it was, that I was like, that scene it was just so very hard and heartbreaking.
And just realistic.
And
And that
powerful.
awkwardness that you're talking about, that's real to me. That's real life. Nothing prepares you for that situation. Kiara's just trying to do what she knows to do, what her training tells her to do. But all the damn training in the world doesn't prepare you to tell somebody that your spouse has been a victim of a mass casualty event where somebody murdered them.
Yeah.
There is no lived experience for that. And you killed that. No pun intended.
I was saying earlier in the question is that this show does a phenomenal job of highlighting everyone that is important, down to sweet Esme, who Dr. Robbie speaks to periodically throughout. It's just, they show how important everyone is. But you both brought something so special to those episodes. You were great throughout the entire series, but something about those episodes just really,
you could feel your pain in the moment, Kiara's pain in the moment. You could feel her wanting desperately to be the helper, because that's what she does. That all she had to fall back on was training. And you did it, man.
It was well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody on this cast is incredible. It's probably the best ensemble cast I can think of in TV history, as far as just my own personal opinion. And I know Becky's opinion. So what was it like to work with that group? And is there anybody in particular that you really enjoyed working with on set?
The most.
The most.
Who was your favorite?
Becky wrote the questions, and she did have the most here. I was trying to go broader with it, but she wants details.
That's hilarious. Well, I will say, like, it was incredible working with the cast. Like, it was because I would get the episodes like one by one. I didn't know who I was working with until I would get the episode. But that was one of the things that was the most exciting, because it was like, when do I get to? Once you work with somebody, it's like, I want to work with Taylor again, and so like it just, or like, when do I get another Noah scene, or and for like different reasons. I wanted more scenes with Amy Lynn and Kristen, and like just the nurses, and so
they were hilarious.
Yeah, they're so funny, and then funny in real life. Yeah, I just wanted to work with everybody, and I would say gosh, it is so, I can't.
I know.
Oh man.
You don't want to say one person and feel like you're going to leave somebody else out, I imagine.
Well, can I have like, well, because I'm gonna leave somebody out. Obviously working with Noah was like, that was incredible, because I was like, I remember the first time working with him, it was jarring how good he was. And I thought to myself, like, I'm going to learn so much from him, not only as an actor, but as a human, because he's just such a good man. So it was always great to have a scene with Noah. And I think the one that is funny, because Tracy and I had Villar and I had our scenes at the end of the season. So we got through this whole months of shooting, and then I didn't even recognize her character when I saw the script for the first time and I was like, who is this? And I was like, I was familiar because I've seen her name on the call sheet. But working with her was incredible because she was just such a generous actor and such an incredible person. And so like I think, yeah, I don't know.
It felt very
natural, organic.
That's crazy that you never acted together, because honestly, you guys felt like you'd done 100 scenes together.
Yeah, it felt really, I did love like working with Tracy. I remember like it was even after we did those like we did our like, our scenes together, but then it was like the second day we were working together. I was like, I feel like that's my girl.
You bonded.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make it broader then again, so that you don't feel like you're going to call anybody out or leave anybody out. Who was the funniest person that you think on set?
Ah, very good.
Dang, that's hard to tell because
was there anybody funny? Because it's pretty serious.
Oh, I imagine there had to be some funny.
Probably the one who I laughed at it. All right, is for me the tie between who I would find myself laughing or chuckling at the most was actually Catherine, who plays Dana.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Her and as well as Amy Lynn for some reason was like we had that one day where we were shooting a scene with the Kraken, and
I forgot about that.
sometimes you just know somebody is funny, but Amy Lynn she was pretty funny just there. But I was like, which is what made me be like, I was like, she's funny. I want to work with her more. I want more scenes with Perla. So
well, hopefully next season. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that happens for you guys.
yeah.
Yes.
Was there anybody that's surprisingly serious, or that somebody that's just very different from their character that you wouldn't expect?
Heck, who's so different from their character? I don't know. It felt like everybody was pretty close to their character because a lot of people, like I only got to work with a lot of people briefly. So,
Yeah.
you know who I did not get to work with, but I was like, after watching the show, I was like, just from the brief moment of being able to meet her on the show on set, I would have never got that. That was her character was probably Alex.
She said that she self-identified as the character that she felt like was the least like character in real life.
Yeah, I was like, she was so sweet. Garcia is a firecracker.
Yeah. We were shocked by that too, actually.
But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Santos. I was like, I didn't get that Issa is anything like Santos, actually.
I wondered about that. Speaking of self-identifying, I kind of self-identify as a Santos, especially in my younger years, because snark is just the language that we speak in my family. And so I always liked her character from day one.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hate online for her. So I kind of was curious, is she like that in real life, or is she more, because I know she has a theater background and she's played much softer characters in the past.
Yeah, no, I did not get that. I don't think about it. I was like, no, there was no. It was so funny too because it was like probably a month or a couple months before I got to work with Issa for the first time, and looking at the script, I was like, man, Santos is an asshole.
Well, that was the popular opinion.
Yep.
I was like, dang, she's so mean. And then but then when I met her and we were working together, I was like, oh, she's sweet. Like I like her.
Yeah. That's great.
So I took a look through your resume and I saw that you have a degree in Bachelor of Arts in Theater and Black World Studies from Columbia College in Chicago.
Yeah.
You are very well versed in both theater and TV. You have a very impressive resume, but do you prefer one over the other?
Before I worked on this show, it would have always just been a clear cut, like theater is like, my favorite. And I think, but this show also feels like something different. So I'm still probably going to say theater is like, I love my theater. Like that's, my preference is you just have more of an opportunity to build characters and you spend more time with the characters. Everybody has an opportunity to do it because I typically work on plays where there's like an ensemble cast and it's usually not focused on one person. And then that is it's a lot like the Pitt because this is an ensemble. And I really love the community in the theater, like the way that everything is just so like focused on like everybody doing good, especially like in Chicago theater. So like it's such a specific mindset around Chicago theater. And it's just like we have like these regional awards, and the most coveted award is the best ensemble, because like nobody really cares about being like, I mean, you can be the best actress or the best actor, but it's like if you know your whole company stood out, then you know that's when it was done. And so it creates a culture of actors who are generous, who like care about, the people who they're on stage with, and kind of building a family. And honestly, that's what made me so excited to work on the Pit, because Noah, there was this like note that we got when we auditioned, and it was talking about it was very important for this show to have that same type of feeling, like that family ensemble feeling. And I'd never seen anything like that auditioning, or anything where the production was like, hey, this is going to be important to us. Yeah, so when I got that, I was like, oh man, I'm so excited. I'm excited. I hope I get to, hope I get this show. And I did. And so, and it was really like that.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be an actress. I specifically wanted to be in theater.
Yeah.
I found out recently, I was on a game show a couple of years ago, and I found out like I could be on stage. I don't necessarily going to say I was the greatest actress, but I loved it. I did not like having a camera in my face. I hated every minute. It is so different. And I know that a game show is different than being on a television show, but it was just the artificiality of it and the cut, stop now. Okay, we got to redo this right now. I didn't like any of it. And with theater, I'm not saying that there's not divas, that there's not people that you got personalities, and especially with artistic types, we got big personalities, but you have to. It's like being on an island together.
Yeah.
Kind of think I get what you're saying about the ensemble being more important than necessarily the breakout. Of course, you're going to be flattered if you get best actress or what have you, but you know that the success of your show depends on the community, that everybody can depend on each other, because you have to be so vulnerable. You have to be so ready to adapt if something goes wrong, because there is nobody yelling cut.
Right.
None of that. It requires a level of trust, all of that. I think Noah has some theater experience, doesn't he?
See, I do know he has theater experience, because we were talking about him doing a play. So he does have some theater experience.
Well, I feel like I ran across that in some of this research that we've been doing, that between ER and this, he's done a few. So maybe he got that same feeling that you and I got, that, not to put myself on your level, but I have that same love of theater for the same reasons.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where he got that, wanting to bring that vibe,
Yeah, I'm like, and I think there's also the element of, at least this is what I took away from working on this project, was the importance of just creating those like good vibes, and like making sure everybody, we just brought good energy into the space.
Yeah.
It was so important, because I realized that, I mean, and when I say it was, the energy on set just all around was incredible. And even for me, my favorite thing coming in was actually this going through security, because it was like at the like security checkpoint where I would come in and like get my little, Warner Brothers pass. The security lady was just always so sweet. And like she would always remember my name, and she just made my day. And I would come through and I was like, I'm gonna have a good day because I came across her. And I was like, she just made my day.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
awesome.
the first PAs that I would see when I would get there, they were just like so happy and bright. And I was like, it's almost as if there were so many days where I was like, it's almost like somebody was like, make sure Krystel has a good day today.
Awesome.
It always felt like that, which meant a lot for me, because I'm such an empath that I will pick up on somebody's bad mood and it'll just make me sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also, like, when everybody's in this good place, you're in a better place to be able to be generous and then be patient, and you can listen more, and you don't, like, the nerves that I would normally get when I'm on set, just they weren't there, because I felt like I didn't feel like I was going to get fired if I messed.
Felt protected.
They had your back.
Yeah.
Everyone. Sounds like everyone had each other's back.
Absolutely.
A literal team.
Yeah.
environment. And that's nice to hear. And a lot of the other castmates have echoed your sentiment that it was genuinely a great environment to work.
When we were interviewing Justin, we asked him a kind of a version of the question we asked you about who did you like working with, and asked him if there was anybody that really stood out for him. And he mentioned Noah's stand-in. And he said what was so impressive to him as an actor was watching that guy and watching how serious he was about making sure that he got it exactly right, even though he didn't see one moment of screen time.
Yeah.
That level of dedication, I'm not shocked to hear that that was a safe environment, because just in any job, in my job, you don't work that hard if you don't feel valued, or if you don't feel like your craft is important to what you're doing. And for somebody to put that kind of effort in, knowing that he wasn't going to have a moment of screen time, to me, that screams somebody that is working in an environment where everybody has bought in.
Yeah.
And treated with respect.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That there was also the like my on-camera experience. The Pitt was the first show where I was recurring as a character.
Mm-hmm.
So usually when I'm working on television, it's like I'm just coming in and doing that, like I'm doing like a day player role, like I'm just there for that day, whatever scenes I have that day. And so I actually, but I'm mostly doing theater. So, and it is, like you mentioned, it's such a different beast. Like it's so different that I remember there was a day where early on set, and I was like, I don't think I know what I'm doing. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. They're saying words and I don't know what that means. And they're telling me about this camera. I don't know what that camera means. I don't know why I need to know what that lens means. And then I was working with Taylor, and I must have looked lost, because she would just start telling me what something was or what that meant, like without me having to ask. And I really appreciate. I was like, how does she know I needed that? But I was just so grateful. That's also why I love working with Taylor, because I was like, she's not gonna let me look lost. And I felt like I could ask her a question if.
Yeah, that kind of trust, man. That's huge. Like that.
So she's as amazing in real life as she is as her character.
Absolutely, yeah.
I read a thing the other day that's like you started watching the show for Noah Wiley and you left because of Mel King.
Oh,
you stayed because of Mel King.
You stayed because of Mel King. Yeah, sorry, I didn't say that right. You stayed because of Mel, and that is the truth. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Hey, before we move on for that, because I got a question I'm going to ask you here in just a second, which is I'm really excited. Becky, again, wrote all these questions, and I'm super excited to ask you this next one. I could not help this one. It's going to be great. But before we move that, I don't want to move past this without talking a little bit about, you studied Black World Studies at Columbia College. Do you feel like you use that in your work now?
Actually, it's so funny, because every time I write that, I was like, it was cultural studies with a concentration in Black World Studies.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely do. I think it's
other than just trying to just survive in 2025 America.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's so funny, because getting that education has informed every part of my work, and it informs every part of my work and my personal life. And I'm trying, like, a lot of the times it informs the work that I choose to do.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. As a history nerd, like, did you ever consider going into a field that wasn't in the arts, like using that degree to do something other than theater or acting?
I was probably going to go like into social justice, like into any type of field that involves social justice. I even thought I wanted to be a social worker at one point, but I talked about that empath thing at the time. I know how to create a boundary where I'm carrying somebody else's burden with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now I think, as with age, like, I've become more equipped to understanding how to make that work. But at that time, I think I wasn't selfless enough to not make those problems mine and just like carry,
I think it's
preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's the opposite. You are such a caring person that it would be very difficult. I don't know about you, but like mom and like made me a much softer and stronger person at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And back when I was a kid, when I thought about, because those kinds of things have always been important to me. Whenever I would think about going into some kind of role like that, I would always knew I would not be able to destroy myself in the process. I just
Yeah.
didn't have the tools, and it wasn't selfishness. It was just, I knew that nobody needed me there sobbing on their shoulder while they're trying to tell me about this horrible thing going on in their life.
Yeah, see, well, that was like, I think that's the thing of like where I was like, I don't know that I wouldn't be able to not get like, well, there's like this scene in episode 8 where Kiara is dealing with the drowning the children,
The parents of the little girl that died.
and I was like, if Krystel from like in her 20s was in that situation, I wouldn't be good for anybody. Like I would probably go in there and be crying and wouldn't be able to put that away.
Right.
And I think now it's like, I think I know how to, like, I figured out what it is that I need to do. Like you said, the tools.
Yeah. Younger us didn't have that skill set. It's not even selfishness, I don't think. It's empathy.
Yeah.
Genuinely wanting people to be okay and not be hurt.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So back to the silly for just a second here.
I don't think this is silly at all. This is fascinating.
You don't know where this is going, Becky, because you don't know what you brought out. We noticed you have a whistling and basketball listed as your talents on your resume. Please tell us more about that, especially the whistling.
I gotta know.
I mean, I know how to whistle. My great grandmother hated it, but oh my gosh, she used to get on me all the time because I would walk around the house just whistling. And I was like, I can whistle anything. And I didn't realize that it was a thing that everybody wasn't incredible at, but
I'm a whistler too. So I can't carry a tune, but I can whistle. And my husband, he likes to pull it out as a party trick every once in a while because I can do that, and I do it to my dogs all the time.
Yeah. That one I can't do. That's the one.
Really?
Yeah, no.
We'll have to work on that together. But what about basketball? Are you tall?
No, I'm 5'4". So I'm like, I have point guard height.
Me too.
But
I'm 5'2" and no skill.
Like when I would play, I was always like point guard, but I had like I wanted to be a post player. Like in my heart, I just wanted to be like a post player, which means I was just too lazy to be a point guard. And I also I'm very aloof. Like I can be very aloof. Like I can also just like stop paying attention to something.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have like really good court vision to be.
Basketball court's not the place to start spacing out and thinking about like the history of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, that just never really panned out for me. But it's just like something I put there because I'm always like, I want to play.
Does somebody cast me?
I could play a point guard.
Well, that would be fun. Okay, Becky, back to you.
That was cool. Thank you for indulging us in that one. So based on what we've seen from your Instagram page, you are an amazing activist and champion for the rights of women, especially Black women. And given the current state of our country and all the crazy that's going on, what advice do you have for people like us concerned about women's rights, concerned about being a person of color in this country, or those who are just plain worried about where we might be headed?
I think especially like now, and it's so funny because I was like talking to Marie, who's my makeup artist from the Pitt. I remember like right after the election, the first time I saw her after the election, because me and her, we would have these conversations, and there was this like question of like, what are we supposed to do? Like it's just, I don't know what to do. Like, and then also there's so many conversations around, I remember also post election, there were so many questions around like Black women just being like, I'm done. Just washing my hands, like not doing anything else. And I was just thinking, I was like, we can say that, but it's not true because we're never going to be done. It's just, I was like, we're never going to just wash our hands because we're, as women, we're mothers and we are, or you're like older sisters or your aunts, and you're never going to just wiping your hand of this country means wiping your hands of your family. I was like, we're not going to do that. But also it feels like the work that we have to do is so big. And I know that everybody can't go to marches and they can't go to like, city council meetings. But one of the things that I was like thinking about that and it's going to sound so small and maybe even corny, but it's the smallest thing. And I feel like if we all do it, or if as many people as possible can do it, it can make a difference. And that's just being good
Yeah.
Yeah.
person you know how to be. It's like talking about the security guard, like coming, just going through security and seeing that woman every day and how she made my day better, which meant I was going to carry that on to the next person who I encountered. And that, like, people's goodness inspires me.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you, it just gives me life when somebody does something good for me, or when I see them doing good for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so incredibly moving. And if you don't know what else to do, just do good. Like, teach your children to be good.
I'm getting that tattooed on me.
I'm like getting choked up because that's, kindness is at the end of all of our podcasts. Before we sign off, I say some quote about strength or hope or peace, and kindness was one of them. And I remember one day at the office I used to work, I pass someone and I just smile at them. It's just a natural thing for me to do. And one lady one day was like, why do you do that when most people don't even, most people are so grumpy? I'm like, you just never know who needs it.
Yeah.
And that was just such a powerful, powerful thing you just said. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Your handle on Instagram is Mommy Luther King. And that, taking it back to that microcosm of what does it mean to be a caring person in the world, to want to see change. And maybe this is just getting a bit too expansive, but like I think about Martin Luther King, and I don't think he naturally was a pacifist. I think being pacifistic was very hard for him, but I think he was genuinely committed to this idea of exactly what you just said, is that you have to be what you want to see the world become. And if you want people to give kindness to you, then you need to try to look for those opportunities to give kindness to them. And I want to say I'm really privileged to just be sitting here as a white woman, even being able to have this be in the middle of this conversation, because I've been seeing all this talk online about same thing you're talking about, that for whatever reason, TikTok thinks I'm a Black lesbian, and I'm here for it. I just try to keep my mouth shut so they don't find out. Anyway, I see a lot of women who are like, no, like there's this little sound on TikTok that's like, don't go to the protest, don't do any of this stuff. And I am so torn by that, because on the one hand, I don't get it, but I get it. Me, a 50, almost your 50-year-old white lady, I'm so sick and tired of watching Black women have to save this fucking country over and over and over and over again, even though statistically you are the ones that are the most likely to be experiencing violence. With mothers, fetal mortality rates are insane. Even though you are the most vulnerable demographic in this country, you're also the most educated and the most practical about the fact that if nobody's coming to save you, you got to get up and you got to do it yourself. So then the other half of that is like me being afraid of what if people really do just start giving up, particularly Black women, because we owe so much to the work of Black women in this country that we're really fucked if they just give up en masse and sit down. Like, that's where I found peace, because I panicked about that for a while after the election, is that I don't know any Black women who are waiting around for somebody to take care of them. And I don't know that constitutionally, most of my friends are capable of sitting down and shutting up for very long. Like, they might need a break, but then they're just going to immediately get back up once they've had a little nap, and they're just going to get back to trying to save the world. And it's not fair and it's not right, but I just want to say I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, there's just like Black people and generous have like this relentless fight within. And even if it's so innate. I think that what's the word I'm looking for? Because I was like, it's not even relentless so much as like,
I think innate is what you're looking for. I think it's just part of your character. It's part of the culture. It's part of every bit of it.
Yeah. And I was like, there's also like, there's a generational thing about it. It's just this survival instinct. And it is funny because, right, my family, we celebrate Kwanzaa, and we always will sit and talk about where we are as a community and a family, and like where we want to be. And one of the things I remember telling my family, I was like, it's kind of incredible. Like every African American person that you see in this country, you do realize like where we came from. I was like, there's some fight in our DNA. There's something that is just that you can't destroy. I was like, because like if you think about how we got here, the circumstances that we survived, just the transatlantic slave trade, and then
Right.
slavery, and then Jim Crow, and it's surviving there was no reason why we should be here.
Mm-hmm.
Our grandparents and like our great grandparents and great great grandparents, we're made of some really strong stuff. So it's not going to be easy to take us out. And I absolutely understand the feeling of, because I've definitely been there myself sometimes where I'm just like, and especially with this last election, I told myself, I was like, I know I'm going to vote, but I'm cutting the news off. Like I can't even.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't listen to this. It's going to take me out. And so like, there are definitely times where it's like, where you have to rest.
Yeah.
There's definitely resting, but I don't see us just ever completely being like, I don't care, do what you're gonna do. I'm just gonna sit here while it burns. I was like, that's just not gonna happen. I don't see that happening.
I mean, Black people aren't a monolith. I know that there are people that are going to do that, but the vast majority, I think that the reason that this country has survived as long as it has is because Black people have refused to sit down and shut up. They've insisted upon their rights. You studied culture and your ancestors, the people that were brought here, like somebody came and took me and my daughter and and just shipped us off.
Yeah.
Then the next generation comes along and they're cut off from all of their culture.
Yeah.
The only way that survives is through sheer grit on the behalf of people that they were born free people. And they had to have that trauma that none of us can really fathom. But the strength to go through that trauma and then be like, not only am I not going to buckle under here, but I'm going to make sure that under the most egregious system, when our family is literally destroyed because they don't want us to have community, we're still going to find ways to do that. And they did that for 400 fucking years.
Yeah.
Like that kind of DNA does not sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
Becky sent this to me. I have a podcast that I've just started doing myself because you were talking about like sitting down and trying to reflect on what you can do. I had that too after the election, 20 years or 15 years that we've watched an overly qualified woman lose out a job to an idiot.
Yeah.
That just destroyed me for a minute. So I did the same thing, regrouped and started thinking about what can I control? And so I started this podcast called Dinner for Her, where every 2 weeks I'd sit down with a woman in my life, because my goal is to try to help the people in my immediate vicinity. So far, it's all women that I know and love and care about. And they pick a woman from history that they feel like the world needs to know more about or that they want to learn more about. And then we sit down and we talk about what we've learned about that woman, what that person meant to whoever my guest is, all of that. And then we have a meal that is in some way, shape, or form inspired by that woman's life. And my second episode was Zora Neale Hurston.
Oh.
So Becky sent me that screenshot of where you had posted, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. And when I was doing my research about her, like that was one of the quotes of hers that was like, it so speaks to womanhood in general. I got to imagine that comes from a very real place of the shit that she experienced.
Yeah. It's so funny too, because I was like, even now, like there's things in the news where you see, like Trump and like MAGA people, they'll say certain things about Black culture or Black people. Like Trump loves to say that Black people love him. So it's like, it kind of reminds me of that. I was like, that's an example of it. Like somebody will sit up there, like he will take something and be like, oh, they love me and spin it. But that's also why I'm like, I just don't believe in being quiet about what it is that you're going through or just being quiet about your pain, because people will, I think, especially like as a Black person, I think I was always just growing up. And I think my dad, my mom have always like imparted upon me like that you have to like speak up about what it is that you're going through and speak up about like.
Good for your parents.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, my dad was definitely that guy. But yeah, like it's just to speak up about what you're going through, what your people are going through, and just raise awareness. Because sometimes that's like another one of those things. Like sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Going through your Instagram, I appreciate your voice and the way you use it. And I hope you'll continue to do so because
It inspires us.
it really does. So thank you for
If you're
that.
ever feeling like it's hard and you don't know if anything's making a difference, just know that we are now locked in. We are in love with you. We are going to be watching everything you do, and you are inspiring to us.
Mm-hmm.
It is not lost on us that, especially in your industry, that can be a dangerous thing to do. You can actually lose work for it. You can alienate your audience. So we just really appreciate that you guys are doing that. You are basically the security guards.
You are. Yeah. You all are our security guards that warm us
to
up.
make us feel like that there's still good people out there.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Becky.
Well, I think we've kept you long enough. But before we go, we do want to ask, where can our listeners find you? And are there any projects in the works for you that you would like to tell us about, or any organizations you want to highlight? Anything?
I am Mommy Luther King on Instagram. The next thing I have coming up, I appear on Chicago Med.
Ooh,
It's exciting.
shade on the pit.
Does Dr. Robbie know about this?
I don't know, but I remember I was doing a table read and Stephen Weber, who's good friends with Wiley.
Yes.
I was in the middle of the read and he was like, "You're a lot nicer on the pit." It was hilarious, and it was so funny because in my head I was like, nobody will know that I'm on the pit.
That came out of nowhere. You didn't realize that he knew that about you?
I didn't know that anybody knew that about me.
Isn't that like when you go to like a party and you're like, hey, you know my buddy? And it's like when worlds collide.
Yeah, it was so funny. I think the pit might have been on air for like maybe probably had like 3 or 4 episodes out when I was doing that. And in my head, I was like, I also can't tell like who's watching what and not assuming that anybody, I just wasn't assuming anybody was watching it or would recognize me somehow. And so when they would like recognize me from the pit on set, I was like, oh my God, I'm cheating.
You're gonna be getting that more and more though.
Yeah. So it was that I was like working on that show. It was a totally different character, but it was fun.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll be on Chicago Med, not playing Kiara. It is not a crossover episode.
Well, I'm excited to see. You got me intrigued. I'm like looking forward to
We're
seeing
gonna
it.
see Bad Girl Krystel. Is this gonna be like a completely different type of person?
Just a little more stern. It's just a little more stern. Definitely not Kiara.
Well, I am intrigued. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, for sure.
I also have I'm a part of a theater company, ensemble member at Rivendell Theater Ensemble, which is the first professional women's theater company in Chicago. And
What?
we're in our 30th anniversary. I obviously wasn't there when they started, but celebrating the 30th anniversary, and we're working on this really cool project. It's called the Folded Map Project, where Tanika Johnson, who's this photographer, photojournalist, and her work has been like everywhere. She has an exhibit at the Gordon Parks Foundation, and Museum of Contemporary Arts has like showcased her work. But it's basically this project where Chicago is like probably the most segregated city in the United States. And basically, if you're on the south side, you're black, you're on the north side, you're white. Usually what that kind of looks like. And so she had this project where the idea was that if you took a map and you folded it and you matched up the coordinates of an address, there was a match for it on the other part of the city.
Wow.
She took photographs of both of the homes on that part of the city to get an idea of what it looks like over here and what it looks like over there.
Yeah.
And eventually she met the people who lived in those homes, and then she introduced them to each other.
Wow.
Oh.
And it created this dialogue around what their experiences were and how it got to be like that. And it really covers a lot of segregation in the city of Chicago. And we're working on a show right now of putting this project together. And then it's a part of a whole thing, but it's really cool. But if you go to www.rivendelltheater.org, you can, or just look up the Folded Map Project. It's a really
Oh, I'm checking it out immediately.
it's such a cool project that I could just sink myself into forever.
Rivendell, like Ribbon.
Rivendell, and I think it's a Lord of the Rings reference.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's named after the artistic director. Her family has a ranch called Rivendell Ranch, and it has something. And she always mentions Lord of the Rings, so I know it has something to do with that.
Yeah, there's a Rivendell in Lord of the Rings. It's Riven, like river, Riven, and Dell.
Yep. Yeah.
I'll make sure to post links to that as well as your Instagram page and all of that so our listeners can follow you and be inspired like you inspire us and know everything else that you've got going on.
One last thing I want to ask you, though, Krystal, is I know that you are fully Chicago now, but you have a slight Southern twang, it sounds like to me. Are you originally from down here?
No, this is very funny that you mentioned this because when I was auditioning for the Pitt, it was like we had to do like a network test. And at one point, so I do my first read. And then at one point, I think it might have been John Wells who like popped up on the screen and was like, could you, he was like, where are you from? And I was like, Chicago. Like, that's what I've been saying. He was like, you're from Chicago. I was like, yeah. He was like, because you sound like you're from Atlanta.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I was like, what? He was like, yeah, just do it again, but like less Atlanta, more Chicago. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, I don't know how to fix it. But what it is a lot of the vast majority of Black people in Chicago, we are products of the Great Migration.
Mm-hmm.
We are just like 1 or 2 or 3 generations removed from the South. And so if usually Black Chicagoans, we don't have the same accent or the same dialect that non-Black Chicagoans have. Like we typically have a lot of Mississippi sounding. We don't use our R's a lot. We hate a R. And so we do have these tendencies. Every time I go somewhere else, I get called country.
Have you spent any time down here? I know you came for a visit recently, but like, have you growing up? Do you have family down here? Or?
Yeah, we will always go down south for the summer. Breaks were usually spent. My family was like in Alabama, Lula, Mississippi, Louisiana. So we would just pick a spot down south and go. We spent a lot of time in Memphis too, because that was like so close to Mississippi.
That's where my mom's side of the family
Mine
lives.
too.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, yeah. So we had some Tennessee time.
Well, this was awesome, and we thank you again so much for being here. It's been a very fun conversation, and like I said, we'll post link to your social media and all of the other stuff that you mentioned. And if you make it to Nashville and want to say hi, you know where to find us. We'd love to have a drink and toast to your success.
And reach out if you get anything else in the future that you want us to, if you ever want us to shout you out or give a plug to anything you're doing, please feel free to reach out going forward.
Now you hop on anytime.
Whether you want to admit it or not, we're going to tell everybody we're best friends now anyway. So
that's cool.
You might as well take advantage.
Yeah.
That wraps up our interview with the wonderful Krystal McNeil. We are going to be back soon with our season 1 recap of The Pitt.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
I'm Krystal.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.